Vegas Pro provides two methods of changing the velocity of video events. There is a third method, which involves applying the Vegas slow motion video effect, but this method requires a lot of processing power, so I won't be dealing with it here. Most users will be familiar with one of the two methods, the control drag method. This is simple to use and allows single or multiple events to be extended, that's slowed down, or contracted, that's speeded up. This method is also available to Movie Studio Platinum users as well as users of the basic version. The problem with this method is that the velocity value is fixed for the length of the event or events. If you need varying values of velocity, you need to use the second method, velocity envelopes. These are only available to Vegas Pro users and are applied at event level. In this video, I'll describe this method. An important point to remember when changing the playback rate of video. The resulting frame rate of the video will be different from the project frame rate, so you should make sure that the resample mode in the project properties is set to either Smart Resample or Force Resample. Welcome to tutorial 37. This timeline contains one video event. It's a simple 10-second event that counts up from 1 to 10. Now, for the benefit of users who are unfamiliar with the control drag method, I'll demonstrate that first, but I won't go into too much detail. If I place the cursor over the end of the event, then press the Control key, you'll see that a jagged horizontal line appears at the cursor. You'll also see a tooltip labelled Time Stretch. I can now hold the left mouse button down and drag either way. Dragging to the right will lengthen the event, which will slow it down. Dragging to the left will shorten it, which will speed it up. There are limits to this method. An event can only be lengthened to 4 times its original length. That means a speed decrease of 1/4 of its original speed. Similarly, an event can only be shortened to 1/4 of its original length. That means a speed increase of 4 times the original speed. I'll just give you a tip about this method. After stretching or contracting an event, you may find that it's difficult to get the event back to its original length if you change your mind. Let me show you. If you get into this predicament, simply right-click on the event, go to Properties, and enter 1 in the playback rate box. then click OK. You may now need to drag the end of the event to the loop point. More about loop points later. So that's the control plus drag method. I want to now deal with velocity envelopes. To apply a velocity envelope to a video event, you need to first select the event by left-clicking on it. By default, a selected video event will have a yellow border. With the video event selected, right-click it, then select Insert Remove Envelope. Select Velocity from the options. You will then see a line appear along the length of the event. By default, this line is light green in colour. If you find this difficult to see, you can change the colour in Options, Preferences, Display. This line initially corresponds to a playback rate of 100%. That's normal playback. If you left-click on the line and hold, this allows you to drag it up or down. A label will appear showing the percentage velocity increase or decrease at the cursor position. Note that a negative value indicates a reverse direction. You will also note that a velocity greater than 100% will result in notches being placed on the event. These are called loop points and show where the modified event ends. After making any change to the velocity, you must click on the event to refresh the change in loop points. If you're happy with the new velocity, you should drag the end of the event back to the first loop point. Similarly, if the velocity is between 0 and 100%, you should drag the end of the event forward until you reach the first loop point. As with the control plus drag method, this method has its limits. The forward velocity limits are 1000%. That's a tenfold speed increase, and 0%, that's freeze frame. The reverse velocity limit is minus 100%. That's normal speed in reverse. If you right-click on the control point on the velocity envelope at the beginning of the event, a context menu will appear giving a number of options. For simplicity, I won't describe all of these options, although most of them are self-explanatory. What I will do, though, is to show you some of the features of velocity envelopes. For instance, I can double-click on the envelope at the end of the event to create a control point and select a different velocity. This will cause the event to play back with a change in velocity. Alternatively, I can create the control point by right-clicking on the envelope and selecting Add Point. You'll notice that the envelope isn't straight. That's because the default fade type between control points is smooth fade. To get a straight envelope, you need to select linear fade. Those of you who've watched some of my other tutorials about keyframe animation, particularly tutorial 33, will recognize these context menu options for the control points. These control points are similar in function to the keyframes mentioned in that tutorial. I'll just describe one more option, which is the hold fade type. Firstly, I will just reset the velocity envelope. Selecting the hold fade type for a control point causes the velocity to remain fixed until the next control point is reached. At that control point, the velocity will instantly change to the new velocity. To demonstrate this, I need to create a couple of extra control points on the envelope. I now need to change the fade type at the first control point to hold. At the second control point, I'll change the velocity to 0 and set the fade type to hold. I'll now drag the end of the event back to the loop point and play the event. You'll see that at the first control point, the velocity went down to 0, effectively giving a freeze frame effect, and returned to the normal rate at the second control point. Now that's a fairly detailed introduction to velocity envelopes. If it's whetted your appetite for more detail, the Vegas Pro help system has several sections on envelopes in general. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.